A widow in Victoria says Apple says you have to get a court order to access your husband's password. She provided Apple with, all of the information, death certificate and so forth. But Apple said, I'm sorry, we can't help. You've got to go to court. She gave Apple serial numbers. She gave them the will, the notarized death certificate. And they said court order. That's probably a standing policy, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is all so interesting because it is so new. And we saw this a couple of years ago with inheritance rights for iTunes libraries, where people wanted to take over the iTunes library, and it was unclear about whether you could transfer the license, and the companies weren't sure they wanted their music or their movies to be transferred. All of this is brand new. And from Apple's point of view, this is probably a way to abdicate responsibility, because if someone is ever tricked into providing this information, they don't want to be sued, because the worst thing is, oh, you gave away my password. I wasn't really dead. You got tricked. I'm suing you now for $18 billion. Right. And this way, it's very easy to say, well, the court issued an order. It has nothing to do with us. We were merely following the court order. Eventually, I think it'll end up being similar to what it is with banks, where you have to go to a notary, you present the documents, they present you with the files, the same thing that you'd give to the bank to get access to the accounts, to the safety deposit box, and to the other personal property of the deceased person. You would present to Apple, to Google, to Facebook to get access to those accounts. But we just haven't litigated this stuff yet, and that's how it works. Sometimes it happens. You go to court, there's an appeal, there's a bunch of decisions, there's a precedent set, and then very slowly it sort of migrates its way into law.
She wanted
it's not just about privacy. It's not just about privacy. It's also about estate law. That the executive of an estate would, for instance, get the right to go into someone's office and take possession of papers and stuff like that and decide what the disposition of that stuff should be. You can't have a land rush where every relative thinks that. If you have three people who think that they have a right to all the photos and all the things that are on mom's and dad's stuff, or for the passwords to certain accounts, so they can basically move things out of those accounts before things are taken control of it. It's so many times you have to. It's just like the playground taunt of, you go and prove it, and going and prove it is the equivalent of going to court and having a judge decide what's right and what's wrong. Nobody knows until there is that precedent established.
In this case, he had an iPad. She says they shared. She had the unlock code, but she didn't have the Apple ID password, and she wanted to play her game on the iPad. And Apple said, "Well, you have to give us the ID," as often happens on an iPad. And she, the password, she couldn't do it. Apparently, the upshot of this is she went to a group called Go Public, which is a consumer advocacy group, and they contacted Apple. Apple apologized for a misunderstanding and offered to help solve the problem without a court order. It has not yet been resolved. I think it is more complicated than, hey, he died. It's our iPad, and I want to be able to get into it, because
I mean, in these days,
it's not stated in the will. You don't get access to everybody's property, and this is why, going forward, for people who listen to this show, you really ought to make a plan for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely making a data plan is important, because I think that it does put the company in a very complicated situation to, just provide this stuff without a court. The reason you want a court order, as Rene was kind of alluding to, is that let them hash that out. Just tell us what you want to do. They're not trying to make it harder. They're just like, we just want the legal side of this to be hashed out, and and then when you come to us,
they're not questioning his death. They're not. Yeah. It's not that. It's just, well, do you have the right to this product, and the contents of this product is a much larger question.
Yeah, and they're not going to have their lawyers all dig into, Apple doesn't want to apply all their lawyers to figure out exactly what that is. They want your lawyers to do that.
Right.
and figure that out, and then have a judge just tell them what to do.
Exactly.
And they don't want a vector for social engineering attacks either, where you can just go to them and say somebody's died and have a few pieces of paper. I mean, they want a process that's resilient as well.
Right.
It'd be nice if they decided to write up a formal policy of, this is what we would expect in order to deliver this data, so that it doesn't seem as though they're being capricious or unprepared for this sort of eventuality.
The simple and easy solution is a password manager. I use LastPass. They've added in the new feature in 4.0 that lets it's an emergency feature that lets somebody get access to your LastPass password, and then presumably in LastPass you've stored everything. You might as well put your will in there too. You can put everything you want in there. And then the process is clever because you, in your LastPass settings, say, all right, I will get an email when somebody requests this access, my wife or my lawyer requests this access, and I will have a certain amount of time to respond and say no. So you can say, don't give them access for 2 weeks. Let me find, before you contact me and then wait 2 weeks. I set it to like a half a day because if I'm passed away, I mean, it's like a dead man switch. Right. If we send you an email and you don't respond, okay, we figure. The other thing they do is, and I use this too, is you can make a family shared folder and put everything in there that belongs, that everybody in the family should have access to. And
then you could, if you have email problems like me, where you just have so much email coming in and you're trying to manage it, you could set up an if this, and
that.
And have a little light in your office turn red
right.
if someone is going after your
Not dead
LastPass.
Yet.
No.
But it is, and things might slip through the cracks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but your Facebook password, your Twitter password.
It's interesting to think about how you could sort of beef that up a little bit. Like for me, it would be not only did I not respond to that email, but I have not posted to Twitter in an entire week. I haven't had any activity on this IP address for an entire week. It would be really easy for someone to be on vacation, and while they're on vacation, because they didn't buy the good internet package on the cruise ship. That allowed the ne'er-do-well cousin to get access to.
It's hard to think about like exactly how to future-proof all of that too. So you work on all this stuff because I've been thinking about it because I've been as a joke, and then it became more serious. I was thinking of putting like a little QR code, somewhere like if found, return to here, and but I can't figure out what to do with it. Like, do you send it to a web page? Will that last? That kind of thing. When you start thinking permanent, it's hard to think about what that would look like.
Somebody, I think it was Brian Brushwood, created a. Didn't he do a website like if he, like that gets activated if he dies, and like for exactly that, like if
does he play organ music?
It's a great idea. I might do that. If I don't tweet for 24 hours, I must be dead.
Leo, I just saw a Law and Order episode that it didn't turn out well, so don't do that.
Well, that is, isn't that also the premise of Daniel Suarez's great novel, Damon?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And I love those books.
Yeah.
Amazing books.
A game developer has created this entire AI that goes into action upon his death. It's fascinating and a little scary as well.